You might be aware that Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has been on a joint fundraising tour with an accused sex trafficker, Matt Gaetz. So, currently under investigation for sex trafficking a minor. So, wonderful, right? So, I don't need to mention that they are, of course, lightning rod pro Trump conservatives. There's a lot of attention paid to them. Obviously, one is a accused sex trafficker, and the other one says insane, ridiculous things. So now you must think, well, they're going on this fundraising tour, right? They must be drowning in cash. Well, are they? Apparently not. So, in fact, according to FEC filings, not only did they fail to raise a significant amount of money in political terms, but they actually ended up spending about 4 times as much as they ended up raising. Oops. So the Daily Beast explains, since Gaetz and Greene kicked off their joint fundraising committee with a May 7th event at the Villages in Central Florida, their campaigns and joint fundraising committee have posted a combined loss of $342,000. And according to recent filings with the FEC, that joint fundraising effort, Put America First, only reported about $59,345.54 in total contributions. Sad. So now you might think, wow, $59,000. What, for like one event? Because that's generally how much, politicians, Republicans, Democrats, usually raise from like 1 or 2 events. No, apparently not. They've went to a ton of events and ain't nobody giving. In fact, they spent on all these different high-profile events a total of $287,036.19. So they held these events and raised very little money. They're actually in the hole by more than $225,000. I thought Republicans were good at raising money. Weird. Fail. Sad. Baby. But there's more. It turns out some of the money actually came from Greene and Gaetz. So they put each about $150,000 apiece from their own campaigns into the fundraising committee. So now they're both losing money. And they've raised money. And by the way, so this is what's interesting, right? So they have actually raised all their money from small dollar donors. Now, I actually think that's great. Yes, I like the idea of politicians raising money from small dollar donors. That's the way you should do it. Bernie Sanders, of course, famously showed that you could raise enough money for an entire campaign to try to take on the most entrenched establishment candidate back in 2016. So there is a ton of power in raising money from small dollar donors. I absolutely love it. Now, the problem is, there's not a lot of small dollar donors on the conservative side. Turns out most Americans are actually pretty progressive when it comes to their views. And they're not giving money to conservative candidates. In fact, the Republican Party happens to be pretty unpopular with average Americans, with regular working class people. And because that's mainly the Republicans are the party of the rich. They give money to rich people. They wholly support rich people, policies that support rich people, and of course get most of their money from rich people. So if you're a conservative who is trying to raise money from small dollar donations, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a bad time. All right. And so, ironically, the people, the small dollar donations they're actually getting from the American people, from regular people, they're giving it to people who don't give a damn about them, funny enough. So now, this has been an expensive, disastrous tour and an epic fail of a fundraiser, but there is one winner here, okay? And pretend to be shocked when I tell you this. It happens to be Matt Gaetz' PR firm, the Logan Circle Group. As the Beast explains, the campaign hired that group in early April, and they made off with more than $1 million in the second quarter of 2021. While the majority of the money did come from Gaetz, about $125,000 over the course of a month, the firm nudged past the $1 million mark with the $250,000 it received from Put America First. Those payments, nearly 90% of the committee's total budget, were for, quote, event production and management, according to FEC filings. Disaster. A Gaetz campaign spokesperson told the Daily Beast that all donations raised in the tour had gone to Put America First, and asked again if that was correct. The spokesperson said it was. Furthermore, they said, upon double checking with the campaign finance team, the spokesperson would only say that, quote, our filings speak for themselves. Yes, they do. And what did they say? What did he say? Well, nothing good. In fact, individually, Gaetz and Greene raised about $1.34 million and $1.31 million in the second quarter of 2021, respectively. It's a lot of money, right? But that's actually a lot less than they did in the first quarter. In fact, Gaetz slipped from $1.82 million in the first months of the year, his personal best. He also spent $1.95 million along the way, the majority of it on the fundraising, and of course his public relations scramble to push back on those on that investigation for alleged sex trafficking. Greene actually did worse. Now I know they article after article. Oh my God, Marjorie Taylor Greene is raising boatloads of money. Well, it turns out not as much. In fact, Greene actually came about $1.9 million short of her $3.2 million first quarter haul, and after expenses, including travel and fundraising costs, she actually closed the second quarter with about a $300,000 net gain. She had ended the first quarter up $1.8 million. So in fundraising terms, and I know there's a lot of money, but fundraising terms, that's a disaster. That's really fucking bad. And so here's a lesson, okay? Conservatives, bad with money, bad at fundraising from anyone who is not an incredibly wealthy donor. And so, again, that's important, right? Because who ends up doing a fundraising tour and ends up in the hole? Who does that? Who does that? Somebody who's really, really bad at this. And again, it's not just that, but it's also people who maybe try to raise this money, but then scrape some, some off the top for themselves through like a fundraising firm or whatever, or not fundraising, sorry, but like a PR firm or personal expense, whatever, right? Or of course, there's the other thing where it's just people who are completely and totally incompetent. I'll leave it to you to figure that out. That said, a Gaetz spokesperson who was not affiliated with the Logan Circle Group defended the fundraising performance, saying this, quote, despite an endless stream of lies from the media, Congressman Gaetz only continues to be among the most prodigious fundraisers in Congress and is the only Republican who doesn't accept donations from federal lobbyists or PACs. Now, again, you're going to have a problem with that as a Republican because I pointed out before, your base is not working class people. Your base is rich people. The people that give the most money to Republicans is rich people. And to be fair, like Democrats as well. But like, they're running, and here's the thing about, Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene. They claim to be populist Republicans, populist conservatives. The only thing is, their populism isn't really populism. It's just basically coded in sometimes outright racism and xenophobia. And so, there's that. Their populism doesn't have anything to do with economic populism. I mean, it doesn't have to do with giving health care to people or anything like that. No, it's just, I want to say the N-word, essentially. And not only that, but, look, a lot of the so-called populist conservatives also do things like Facebook, mail scams, like, again, Donald Trump, the king of scammers. I remember doing a story during the Trump campaign leading up to 2020, where people who had donated to Trump once got signed up to automatically, even though they didn't like check the box or do anything like that, ended up getting signed up for massive recurring donations that were draining their bank accounts. It's all about screwing people over. It's all about taking their money and then doing God knows what with it. And so now there's one more thing that might have sunk their tour. Cancel culture. And specifically venues canceling on them because of public outrage. And after the launch of the villages, the media had also largely ignored their stops as well. So you had the media, it's like, don't care. Why should they? I'm actually generally in favor of the media ignoring their stops. And the only reason I'm doing this story is so I can make fun of them because they suck. But again, the canceling events, okay? So now, here's the thing. I'm actually okay with them doing events in different places, or generally would be okay with that, right? The thing is, one person is an accused sex trafficker, okay? That's not good. The other one says outrageous and sometimes completely batshit insane things that put people at risk. Now, if you're a hotel or a venue or somewhere, you don't want to be affiliated with that, do you? Not really. But the more important thing here is we're dealing with a pandemic. Yes, it is a pandemic of the unvaccinated at this point. Okay. Well, the crowds who go and see Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz are likely to be unvaccinated. They're the ones who are dying the most from COVID-19. So they are a safety risk. And so you don't want to hold these gigantic super spreader events, especially if imagine if you're the owner of like I said, a venue, a hotel, and you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz trying to bring in a crowd of people, 100 plus, and they're all that unvaccinated, or most of them, and don't wear masks either. You're like, no, dog, I want to pass on that. Thanks. I know. Cancel culture, right? Overall, though, what a disastrous fundraising tour, right? And for me, I actually think it's funny to watch them light their money on fire, or I should say their fans' money on fire, because it generally isn't a lot of their own, but still fun. Have fun in the rest of that failed tour. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.